The sport of windsurfing has been growing steadily for 25 years. During this time, equipment advances have made sailing easier and more fun. All of these advances have been due to sailors' demands as they continually conceive and then execute new techniques and moves. But just as important has been the contribution of the designers, inventing new technologies, testing them, refining them, and testing them again, forever in search of better performance. The bottom line for us all is that equipment gets better every year. That extra performance adds up to gear that's stronger, lighter, faster, and more maneuverable. But in order to get the very most out of this equipment, it has to be tuned correctly. After all you've invested in your board and quiver, it's essential that you now invest the time to learn the basic rules of rigging. By understanding the basic rules of rigging, you'll be getting the most value out of your gear.
Read the manual. There's good information in there.
By understanding the logic used to create today's leading sail designs, you'll know exactly what to look for when rigging. In fact, as you'll see, it is all quite easy. For going fast under control, there's nothing quite like a new racing sail. Today's leading race sail designs use a high amount of downhaul tension, but virtually no obvious outhaul tension. The racing sail design will provide the ultimate in top-end speed and stability.
You're looking for a shallower entry. This enhances your pointing ability. It makes trimming more sensitive, but it increases your upwind speed, makes you point higher and be able to go faster.
To the uninformed, when you first see it on the beach, this race sail may look like it is tuned incorrectly. But it is important to remember that a sail is designed to work well in the water, not to just look pretty on the beach.
We always want to imagine the foil in its raked, twisted, and loaded state. Seeing and feeling the air go across it at the angle that it's really going across the sail.
To achieve the best results from any sail, the first rule is to use the exact mast which the sail has been designed for.
If you put the wrong mast into your sail, the perfect tuning is impossible.
In our race sails, we use a carbon 60 mast. When sleeving the sail onto the mast, you should grip the luff sleeve where the cams are located. Just follow the diagram when threading the downhaul line to the tack fitting. The right threading will eliminate unnecessary friction. The rigging specifications printed on the tack of your sail will tell you the amount of downhaul to apply.
Whatever you do, read the label, rig your sail the way it says here. The measurements were taken off my sail.
In general, the minimum settings are for when the sail is in its lower end of its wind range. The maximum settings are for when it's at the higher end of its wind range. If you're using a mast that is longer than the luff of your sail, set your mast base at its lowest setting. Now adjust the sail's head strap so that the foot of the sail gets downhauled to the cleat of the mast base. The amount of head strap required is also noted on the foot of the sail. With the sail properly downhauled, the leech will now appear loose. It may look like there's an excess of material in between the top three battens.
On the beach, the leech is kind of floppy. That's okay. Once you get on the water and the sail gets loaded up, the mast bends and the sail tightens up. That's the way it should look like.
The booms are set up so that the sail has negative outhaul. Referring to the rigging specifications again, adjust the boom to fall into the correct setting range.
I never put any outhaul on my sails, except for when the conditions are really difficult, like it's very choppy or get overpowered. I put a little bit of tension, so I lose a little bit of the power of the sail to make it more inefficient to be able to control it better.
Center the cams by pushing on the battens and rocking them into place. Make sure they are not too tight to rotate freely. The batten should be tensioned until the wrinkles disappear from the batten pockets. Remember, that includes setting the foot batten adjuster.
Sail tuning is not something that can be quantified specifically for every person in every condition. It's something that you have to experiment with. In order to check the leech tension, you could get a friend to hold the tip of the mast, push down, and then put pressure into the body of the sail.
When the sail is loaded, the leech will tighten. You check outhaul tension by pushing on the sail next to the boom. When the pressure is applied, all of the slack will be taken out. If the sail is properly tuned, the leech will look fairly straight, and the foil will be flat in the top section.
I like the leech to be as straight as possible from the clew all the way to the tip end of the head batten when the sail is fully loaded and distorted and raked into position. If the leech is too tight, you can't bear off. So if you're course racing, even though you may go well upwind, you lose control downwind. The course racing tuning is a compromise between ultimate upwind speed and downwind control at speed.
Rig it right and sailing becomes nearly effortless. Because the sail is balanced, correct body position is easy to maintain, even in the gustiest of conditions.
These sails stay controllable through a gust, so if they're tuned correctly, what you do is you have to sheet in harder when the gust hits rather than back off and lose control for a moment.
There should always be some leech flutter in the sail, especially when fully powered. No leech flutter indicates too little downhaul, and that will affect your speed. In order to minimize leech flutter, we fine-tune the downhaul and the leech cord. To do this, bend the mast and put pressure on the top batten while applying a small amount of tension to the line.
If it's tight enough to stop it from fluttering, then it's probably too tight to be fast. The thing you want to do is you want to tone the fluttering down until it's minimized. I would say that's minimized flutter in that instance right there.
If the leech is flapping excessively, then the sail is over downhauled.
You want it trimmed correctly so that it isn't loose and flapping. It has to be twisted correctly and flattened off correctly, but not just made loose and flapping. This is not necessary. If you're getting manhandled by the sail, then you probably don't have enough downhaul. Actually, I'd say right there, he's a little out of trim, and that the leech is a little tight. See, it's not fluttering at all. It's more open in the middle than at the top. And he's always has to kind of stand up a little bit to stay in control. Because it's smooth water, it's not a problem, but if it was more choppy, it might give him some trouble. It's a matter of sometimes 4 or 5 millimeters of downhaul would make the difference between it being too loose and just right. And the only way you find out about that is by sailing and experimenting and changing trim. Give yourself half an hour or an hour with a particular sail and play around with varieties of tuning. See what happens.
Remember that mast and sail should always be designed together. Here you can see the negative effects of rigging a good sail on the wrong mast.
The blue sail is on a mast that's too soft in the bottom and too stiff in the top. And what this is doing is making the upper portion of the sail too full and Makes the leech twist open in the bottom area rather than in the top, so that the sailor's constantly being lifted by the gusts. When the gust hits, he's being pulled up off of the board. He has a hard time sheeting to the center line. The sailor's sailing, he sees the top of his sail is loose like this on this particular mast. If he backed off the downhaul enough to tighten that up, then the leech would be even more open in the middle and even more tight at the top, and the sail would be even more out of trim. So this is probably as good as he can get it under the circumstance with that mast.
Be forewarned, bad sail trim or equipment incompatibility can sometimes be confused with being overpowered.
See, now she stays in correct body trim all the time. He's continuously lifted up off his heels. If you were tuning with a friend, you could have your friend sail behind you and observe the twist, looking to see that your leech was going as straight as possible from the clew up to the tip of the headband. Now, obviously this can't be perfect, but what you're trying to achieve is something that's as close to that as possible. It's more important to go by how the sail feels and works than how it looks. Because when you make really small adjustments in the downhaul on the beach, you can't really see the sail physically changing right there in front of you. And the only way you're going to know that it's correct is to take it out and sail it and feel what has happened.
Maneuverability, comfort, balance, and speed are all characteristics that we look for in our equipment. A flatwater speedster might prefer a fully cammed ultralight racing rig, while a recreational chop-hopping freestyler may want a raft cam setup. With this in mind, there are a multitude of designs available to meet the needs of every type of sailor. The new generation of general-purpose sails now give you the ability to easily adapt to a variety of sailing situations. By simply adding or removing the raft cam, you can alter the characteristics of the rig. You can make it perform well in a very broad wind range. You can also alter the handling characteristics, changing it from a slalom sail to a chop-hopping freestyle rig, all in a matter of seconds. Rigging these types of sails is similar to our other sails. Don't forget to use the rigging specifications printed on the foot of your sail for all your tuning ranges.
Putting the boom on is a snap. You push the boom onto the mast, adjust for the diameter, and clamp it. For major boom length changes, leave the rotating adjusters unlocked. This allows the boom end to slide. For minor boom length adjustments, turn the rotating adjusters in the same direction.
To install the raft cam, hold the cam so that you push the Velcro apart. Push on the sail about 10 inches back from the luff. Then insert the cam onto the Velcro strip. Rock the cam off at an angle and slide it into its proper position. Finally, secure the Velcro firmly. Once on the water, the versatility of these rigs becomes evident. They combine the solid feel of a racing sail, while also providing the maneuverability of a wave sail. These popular sails will allow you to go flatwater cruising in the morning, freestyling for lunch, wave riding in the afternoon, and all without re-rigging. If you're serious about wave riding, or you just love being rowdy and doing tricks, then you should have wave sails in your quiver. When setting up a wave sail in its RAF configuration, the upper portion of the sail should be flattened out by downhauling until the top battens begin to shift behind the mast. At this point, the tip of the lower battens should still be protruding in front of the widest point of the mast. Outhaul tension is then used to fine-tune the sail. Give it too much outhaul and the battens won't reach the wide point of the mast. Too little and they protrude in front of the wide point of the mast.
On my wave sails I do have outhaul. Depending on the conditions, I have more or less. If the conditions are very easy, I have less outhaul to have more power. If the conditions are difficult, I put more outhaul on the sail to get less power and be more in control.
You can use short battens if you prefer the feel of a softer sail. Ultimately, it's how the sail performs on the water that answers the question of how the sail is tuned.
That's the thing that I think is the hardest to get across about getting people to experiment with tuning their sails. It's not something that you can just say, hey, it's this way and the number is 4172. It's not. It's somewhere in that area of number, and it all depends on you, you know, what kind of board you're using, what the rocker line's like, and those are complex things. There's some where the person really has to be a little analytical.
It's just a matter of feel, whether you're not fighting it, there's no resistance. It's all just sort of combined, just like if it was an extension of your arm.
In every area of windsurfing, sailors have their own ideas about what constitutes the perfect sail. Prevailing conditions, as well as your ability and style, will determine the selection of a particular sail. You might see an image of Bjorn Dunkerbeck flying 30 feet in the air and say to yourself, that could be me. I want to be like that. I'm going to go buy that World Cup racing sail. But it's more important to honestly and objectively evaluate your sailing style, your local conditions and personal ability. Your choice is then made easier. Ultimately, your long-term satisfaction will only come from a careful evaluation of your dreams and goals. Invest in the equipment which works best for you, then rig it right and sail it often.